Everything's in slow-mo on my camera right now. This is weird. Brother B.
What's going on? I feel like we should be singing Reunited and it feels so good. It's been a couple weeks, and here's why. We're both to blame. Okay? I'll just lay this out, and feel free to stop me. You know, Miles got a new job. All right. Miles temporarily, and I don't know, we'll find out if it's temporary or permanent, resurrected his rock and roll career with the band Alter Ego.
Temporary.
Okay, I just want to double check with that because, you know, I'm sure when you said I do, she's like, you're not going to do that band stuff again. So he did the band stuff. He's got a new job. Then I, of course, wrapping up the horse racing season, caught COVID, and we just have not been able to link up. And I'm not saying it would be different if I lived in Indiana, because even though back in the day, if I was living at where I was living at Newport, we wouldn't be that far. It's just like, again, stuff doesn't align, but it's aligning today. The Colts had a bye week, which we'll get into.
Yep.
You know me, I'm gonna throw stuff at you.
We've had a lot happen since the last show.
We have had a lot, man. I'm telling you, we've had a lot happen, which I've got questions on. A lot of stuff in the news that has been going on or whatever. But we try to keep it, because we're just two guys doing a podcast. We're not a rich white billionaire. Okay.
We're already going there.
Here he goes, man.
This is going to be, hey, listen, kids, this is probably going to be a little bit of a long one. Usually we try to keep about 25, 30 minutes. I can't promise that. We got a lot to get to today.
And again, these are just, he's cut me off. These are just opinions. These are just opinions, and just, it's just, there's no right or wrong answer to what we say. And like I say, when I do the Alex podcast, I said, look, I kind of throw stuff out there, see what sticks to the wall. Maybe you'll say, he's got a point. Or maybe say we're complete goons. I don't know.
Well, we are complete goons, but we're two goons on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Yes.
Gotta throw that out there real quick. We love being a part of that.
Absolutely.
So let's get to the grind. What you got, brother?
Let's get to the grind. I'm gonna throw out numbers. You know me, I can throw out these numbers.
We're playing the numbers game right out of the gate.
And I just learned this, and I'll give you a little bit more of a hint. It has to do with Hollywood. Okay. 20 million. Who do you think makes $20 million a year not having to work?
20 million a year not having to work? I mean, there's probably a lot of people on that list, but right now it's Matt Ryan.
No, I said entertainment. I don't talk about football.
Oh, I didn't catch the entertainment.
Yes.
My bad. 20 million
entertainment.
Not working. Okay. I don't have no idea.
I found this out. This blew my mind, and I won't even get into the serious stuff of the stuff of Matthew Perry. Those guys each get $20 million a year. They get 2% of the syndication reruns. David Schwimmer, who hasn't really done nothing since Friends. What's the other guy's name? The guy that played Joey, Matt LeBlanc. They've tried a couple times with him. They've all bombed. $20 million a year to watch yourself on Nickelodeon. Like, that's what they're getting. When the show wrapped,
wow,
they each were getting $1 million an episode. So right now, Jennifer Aniston's done some movies and stuff with Adam Sandler.
Right.
So Courtney Cox has done the Scream franchise. But $20 million just to sit at the crib and maybe listen to the B Brothers podcast. I don't know.
Hey,
that's a lot of money. That's why I tell people, and you as a musician, anybody else, man, get control of the contract, get control of the master, basically lock down your brand, because these guys aren't doing nothing and they're making $20 million a year.
That's
based
right.
off when I Love Lucy and all those guys went to syndication, none of those people got, I'm telling you, that's the why Aaron Spelling was so rich. All those shows like, Sanford and Son, all the stuff that normally, all that stuff, it's all in the syndication, man.
That's part of it, but part of it too is it's Friends, right? Friends is the far most recognizable sitcom brand.
Absolutely.
For generations, for races, for different parts of the country. Yep. I don't care if you're 15 years old or you're 81 years old or anywhere in between in any part of the country or the world. everybody at least knows about Friends. There's very few shows that are on that. Maybe Seinfeld, Friends.
Yeah.
Outside of those two, I mean,
yep. And Seinfeld's got the business sense, so I'm sure he's got syndicate. Any of those guys that came out, once they see how the people got screwed over in the '70s that worked for Aaron Spelling, and it wasn't that's just the way the machine was. Now that they know that there's such a big racket and reruns, look at the Brady Bunch. Could you imagine if the Brady Bunch would have got a cut of residuals from the syndication? How much money they would have made by now?
Oh, yeah. Or the Beverly Hillbillies.
And all these shows that are black and white.
Yeah.
Think of the Andy Griffith Show. Could you imagine how much? I mean, not that Ron Howard needs it. Don Knotts is dead, so his estate would be nice. But, think about that. Now all these guys are smart. They're like, wait a minute. No, man, give me a piece of the pie. Because these shows, like you say, they last. They have that relatability. Like you said, from anybody, no matter what the age they are.
Generational.
And it's generational. All right. So I'm more of the Hollywood person because I'm bored and I serve TMZ at work when I should be picking horses and stuff like that. So I'm going to say this.
Slacker.
I am a slacker. I'm going to say this. Where they always say where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Okay.
Who settles a lawsuit in 24 hours after it's filed for a reported $30 million? Diddy just settled a lawsuit with one of his former artists for $30 million. And he literally settled it the next day after she filed it. Now, 2 more people have come forward. Your thoughts?
Well, the first lawsuit, I mean, obviously
that's scary.
Diddy is smart, right? Like, get rid of it as quickly as possible. And as smart as he has, the people he has working for him are probably way smarter than him, right? But that's also to me kind of an admission of guilt for whatever it was when you settle that quickly.
Oh, it's bad.
But when they start coming out of the woodwork, man, I don't know. I get this weird feeling like, okay, how many of these are legit? Like with Deshaun Watson, and it turned out most to all of those were at least somewhat legit, but not as legit as it was made out to be. So there's just so many different variables, and I don't want to discount what these people are saying at all.
No.
But it seems convenient that you see someone settle for $30 million within 24 hours, and all of a sudden these other cases start popping up. It's
because
is it true? Because if it is, then they're due. But if it's not, is it just somebody looking for a payday at that point?
because this dude, hasn't really had a hit out in a minute. There's really not many people left in the roster. Same thing with R. Kelly. It only takes that one person to go forward. Now, I did see where a suit was filed, and I don't know the particulars, but it happened in 1991.
Okay.
And, by the way, blah, 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 blah happened, okay? Which I hope it didn't, because, again, on the serious side of notes, we don't. But it's like, why? I don't understand why y'all waiting so long. Like, what's the mindset like? Why would you wait that long? As something that really, it was that treacherous.
Right.
Why would you wait that long to try to go after him?
But it's some sort of a mindset. I mean, did you see the stuff with Hall & Oates?
It's crazy. Crazy.
How you gonna put a restraining order?
On Oates? Oates don't say nothing, man. He's like the Penn and
Teller. I want to know the backstory. Like, this is like a WWE storyline right here. Like, but there's stuff that you and I aren't gonna know. As knowledgeable as you are, you fill me in. But something crazy had to happen.
I've got the tea on some of it. Okay. And these guys, there's a company called Primary Wave, and they buy up music catalogs, and they buy up publishing, and they got a lot of money behind them. They are basically the ones that got the Prince trustees and family to turn on each other because 3 of them sold their rights. So basically, they had sold some to Daryl had sold his off a while back, and now Oates is wanting to sell his. So I don't know if Daryl's pissed off because Oates is going to make money because, dude, if you sold yours off or a portion of it off, Oates is wanting to do the same thing. But apparently they got this agreement. I guess it only says one of them can or the other one can. But, and then the news says, well, Daryl Hall was outperforming Hall & Oates. He's the lead vote. What is he supposed to do?
Right.
That's like that. What are you supposed to, like, David Lee Roth is supposed to do Van Halen songs when he goes out? Sammy Hagar's been doing Van Halen. Like, oh, my God, he was Daryl Hall. Hall was like he was the main voice, the main songwriter.
Right. And that's all the lawsuit stuff, right? But the restraining order? Like,
that's
are
crazy.
You really scared?
You really worried about John Holtz showing up at Daryl's house during one of your jam sessions and beating your ass? Come on.
We're going to have Mortal Kombat between the 2 oldest men on the face of the planet? Jesus
Celebrity
Christ.
Deathmatch. Celebrity Deathmatch.
We need to bring it back.
Yes.
We need to bring celebrity. Yeah, I
Could
would.
you imagine it? I
but
would
not
watch that.
claymation. Let's do this in real life. Let's have Hall & Oates jump in a ring and
Yes.
just beat the living crap out of each other.
But
That's entertainment.
I always thought Daryl was kind of he's kind of out there. I mean, that's the lead singer syndrome, which because you know how that goes. That happens not only in professional bands, but also these local bands and these guys that get together and they break up.
It might even be worse in the local bands.
It might even be. Trust me, I've had local bands in the casinos that were more difficult to work with than actual Grammy Award artists.
I said green Skittles.
Yeah, it's totally stupid because a lot of times it's their managers asking for stuff just to see if the venue can pull it off. When you talk to the artist, like David Koechner, his rider was like ridiculous. I'm like, this is like Champ from Anchorman. Okay,
riders are fun to make, though, man. I mean, they're fun to make in my life, and
they're trying to see what's going to go on. And when I talk to David, I was like, no, man, I didn't want that. Da, da, da. So plus, I think then the manager goes back to the artist and says, hey, man, I got you, 5-star accommodations. I got you this, and that. When Koechner was just like, man, just give me a room or whatever, and get a couple dollars,
right?
But whatever.
I didn't even like the green Skittles.
Yeah. So when what's in the big alter ego contract? When you guys play these 2 shows now, so just so you guys know, Miles got back on the bass. It was really weird because his hair was shorter, it was like all combed and stuff. So it kind of weirded me out a little bit.
It looked like a dad playing bass, is what.
Yeah. It looks like you were doing some kind of like church picnic or something. Right. But nonetheless, did you have fun? Why'd you guys decide to do this?
It was a blast. So, like back when I retired from the music industry in 2011, it was because of circumstances. So, like when I played my last show, I had no idea that was going to be my last show. Right. Uh-huh. And, I kind of walked away from live music. We were banging and doing our thing and really getting success in the DJ world. So I, flipped the script, ended up down at Columbus at Scores, and all of that. So, but still, I never really got to go out on my terms. I never really knew it was my last show. So
that always sucks, man.
Yeah, exactly. So, the guys, we were all talking, kind of reminiscing, and Matt was like, hey, I think I could book us a show. And we ended up with 2 shows, the show with Taproot up in Angola, last Saturday. And then this past Wednesday, the night before Thanksgiving, we played a cover show and it was sloppy, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be with 3 guys that hadn't been on stage together for 12 years and one guy who had only played with us for 4 weeks because our drummer couldn't join us for the reunion. So it was a little sloppy, man, but we had a blast, and it's a little bit of closure on a chapter that's really been I've been in band since I was 13 years old, so almost 30 years at this point.
So was this all you guys? Because they're not. You guys aren't currently together, correct? So this is like
it was just a farewell reunion, basically.
Okay, nice. And you guys. So it wasn't like when you played back in the day, because I'm sure there a lot of things changes as far as things go. We'll just leave it at that. And we definitely play. I mean, people ask me now, it's like, "Man, you go DJ in clubs?" No, because first of all, I'm 1,000% sober. Number 2, I don't have faith in the music that's out now. No. And to play all this down tempo stuff, I just couldn't. So I'll stick with the gig I got now. I got my studio where occasionally when I'm not lazy, I bust out Serato and try to do some stuff. Other than that,
right.
Now, would you play the band thing again, or was this just like, hey, cool, no, I'm old, I'm old, I'm married, I got kids, I want to show them how cool I was, that I got to open up for Taproot, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun, and I texted with my wife a little bit, was like, man, I forgot how much I missed this, but no, by no means am I wanting to do it again. Maybe I'd do an album, that wasn't being performed, a studio album or something like that.
Like a flute album, like Andre 3000.
Yaz Flute. But no, I mean, it's for me again. I've had the itch, and part of that was because, like I said, I never really knew when I was playing my last show. And this scratched it for me. Not to say I'm not going to do some old dude jamming or something like that, but I'm done.
You're going to be at a coffee house, dude. You're going to be at a coffee house. You're going to be like Central Perk, like on Friends or whatever. You're just going to be playing like that bass guy. You're like, doom, 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 you're going to be doing some like beatnik jazz stuff somewhere. I can see it.
Over in the corner of a dark jazz bar.
Yeah. You got a little beret on, a little beret.
Yeah, I beret.
Some suspenders.
Suddenly get a French accent or something stupid like that. Ho, ho, ho. I play the bass. That was terrible.
That was bad. You didn't work on that.
The ho, ho was okay.
That was okay.
I'll stick with Shaggy.
Yeah, you hit a brick wall. You hit a brick wall after that. It was done. But could you imagine that you're playing in a band, You don't even know it's your last day. Could you imagine? You probably didn't feel as bad as Shaq Leonard, who, I guess, I don't want to say the word unceremoniously, but Tuesday was cut from the team, but he still went out and did his food drive with his teammates, which was class. Because I think somebody like Edge or Cato Jr. would have probably bounced. No, Edge wouldn't, because him and Amp do a lot of things together. But he still did the charity thing. He didn't know it was coming. He said, and I quote, "I felt like I was thrown out." Well, why would he have that feeling?
So, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in this whole scenario, and I feel like the further away we get from it, the more details come up. First of all, nothing but love and respect for Shaq Leonard. For 3 or 4 years, he was insane, and then, this game has a way of taking you, by surprise, and that's what happened to him. He had injuries that he just couldn't get back from, and he's not the same. And he knows it, but he, the situation as it goes. First of all, before I dive into the situation, nothing but respect for the way he's handled it, right? He did the turkey drive. He was at the game today. They showed him on the camera. Cheering on the Colts.
Did say that.
And that's why I think there's more to this. It's class, but I also think there's more to this. Like
what?
Maybe he didn't see it coming right then and there. But, he had been complaining in the public about, his snap counts and his lack of being on the field. And then when he got a chance in Germany against the Patriots, he had a bad game, and he's had bad games. He hasn't
I'm going to blame that I'm being in Europe.
Well, no, but it wasn't just that. He's not been that good. He's been, first of all, the scheme that Gus Bradley runs doesn't fit him. Second of all, he's just not got what he had, and I'm not saying he couldn't get that back over time, but I also don't think that his love for the game is where it's at. And this is where I think there's more than meets the eye, because if you saw them up in the stands, and it wasn't just when he knew he was on camera, there were a couple of candid moments where he didn't know he was on camera, and he's smiling.
Was he up in the he's on the sidelines, right? He wasn't in the press box.
He was in a press box. He's smiling, he's picking up his kids and hugging them and kissing them. And I think while this situation is really weird and took a lot of people, including myself, by surprise, I think what it came down to is Chris Ballard and Leonard sat in a room, and Chris said, "Look, you're not there, or I don't know if you'll be there or not, but we're probably going to bench you for the remainder of the season." And I'm sure Shaq didn't love that, how he responded. No. I'm not sure, but probably also knowing the business as much as he does, probably said, yeah, I could probably take the rest of the season off, heal my body a little bit more, get to spend time with my little girls. And so, obviously, as weird and awkward as the split was, it's amicable. He's at games, smiling and having a good time. He's staying in Indy. For all we know, maybe he takes his time to heal and they sign him to a small deal for 1 year at the end of this year. Who knows? That might be the piece we don't know. But
I would be happy.
If a team was going to pick him up, they would have by now.
Yeah, I would be happy if I had 2.5 years left on my contract. I'd be happy too. I'd be staying in Indy. I wouldn't be getting out the old Ryder truck. He's got 2.5 years left, so he's going to get some of that, correct?
Well, he'll get $8 million from us next year and $4 million the year after.
Guess
but
what?
He's still liable to go out and sign another contract. But if he is done with football, or if his heart isn't in it, like he's said in years past, I'm sure he's been smart with his money. I mean, he made $20 million for a couple years before this happened, for not really playing, in the rookie contract before that. But take that $12 million and invest it, be a businessman, do some of the things that Gary Brackett has done. Right. Be smart with your money, and that can last you and your children the rest of their lives. Yeah. And then some, depending on the what you do. Now, if he's got the hunger, if he's got the competitive spirit that we know him for, and he's not done with the game, then, he could come back in 2024. Or maybe a team in the playoffs that has an injured player that needs a gap to fill. He could come back and play for them. But I kind of have this feeling like for right now, he's like, let's just see what happens. I'm just going to enjoy my time, spend some time with my girls during the football season. go enjoy the game that I used to love and maybe try to fall back in love with it as a fan. That could lead to him coming back too, and not for the Colts, most likely, especially with him still hitting the cap. We're not going to double pay a guy. But this was a move that the Colts had to make. Leonard's production was not just down, it was almost non-existent. The guy that they signed from the practice squad had an interception today, the guy that replaced him in the lineup. Like, I mean, immediate impact from a practice squad guy, more than Shaq's had all year. So the Colts had to do this. This is, even though they're competing at a level nobody thought they would, it's still about building the future for this Anthony Richardson football team, and opening up that cap space gives us the ability to go out and get wide receivers, get cornerbacks, get more pass rush in places that aren't just the draft.
Well, if I had that money, I'd sit there and invest, or maybe go work for the team like it seems everybody else does, because now this game today, I didn't watch. I'm not going to lie. I didn't watch it. I was out hanging out with my dad. And the score, 27-20. Mm-hmm. Now, what implication does that have for playoffs? Because I know it looked kind of, 2 weeks ago, I was reading some headlines that looked kind of dicey. And now is where do we sit with that?
The AFC,
what are we, 6-5? Are we 6-5?
Yeah, we're 6-5. The AFC is crazy because there's like only 1 or 2 games that separate about 8 teams, including teams that lead their division. Right now, if the season ended today, the Colts would be in the playoffs in the wild card.
Nice.
Yeah, at 6-5, Houston lost today. We hold the tiebreaker over them. Jacksonville has a 2-game lead on us and Houston for the division. They'll probably win it. So we're definitely playing for a wild card. But it's a really interesting landscape because you have, in this landscape, you have the Cleveland Browns, who their starting quarterback is out for the remainder of the year.
Ouch.
You have the Baltimore Ravens, who I think will probably rise to the top and end up winning that division. You have the Cincinnati Bengals, who lost their quarterback, Joe Burrow, for the season last week.
Ouch.
You have the Houston Texans, who's a young team that honestly has probably been overperforming for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but obviously C.J. Stroud is something special. You have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I don't know how they are in the mix because that is not a good football team, but I think they were 7-3 coming into this week.
Where does Kansas City sit in playoffs?
Kansas City is currently leading their division. I think they're 7-3. I can't remember right off the top of my head right now.
Everybody out here is Kansas City. It's just they're all Kansas City.
The AFC, the NFC, you could almost guarantee who the 6 teams are going to be over there. The NFC, the AFC has gotten really interesting. I mean, there's not even anybody who's running away with their division. I mean, you've got Miami, you've got Kansas City, and you've got Baltimore, who are probably the 3 favorites based on production. But there isn't a standout team like the Chiefs of the past, or the Colts back in the Manning days, or the Patriots back in their heyday.
So there's not one superstar. There's not one superstar in that group.
Kansas City can change that. Now, in the NFC, the Eagles are just ridiculous, right? They're probably going to win the Super Bowl this year going away.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're playing out of their minds, and it's a good football team. It's well coached. A lot of talent on that team. But, any given Sunday, right? So
that's right. You don't know what's going to happen. So who do we face coming up? I mean, what's the scenario have to look like so we can keep the dream alive? So, because I'd like to see it. It'd be cool. I'd like to see that
for sure.
And the fans.
We have, next week is a huge week, right? And for a lot of reasons. So we have the Tennessee Titans next week.
Oof.
So it's a divisional game, which is huge. It's the Tennessee-Indiana rivalry, which is huge. But much like when Frank Reich and the Panthers played the Colts a few weeks ago, that's a game you just can't lose. Will Levis cannot have 400 or 500 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. Like, you got to keep it respectable, or my God, I can't imagine the talk that's going to come. Well, we should have drafted him 4th overall, which is not true. But and obviously, I don't want to root for anybody to fail, but I don't want to see him succeed, or at least be better than Richardson when he comes back. But you can't lose that game because it's pivotal for the division. You're in the playoff race. It's part of the rivalry. You've already lost 2 divisional games to Jacksonville.
They playing in Nashville? They playing in Indy?
Hang on, I'll tell you real quick here. Give me just a second. I can't remember if that's a home or away game.
Because if the weather was nice, I think that would be a cool Alex and Miles road trip to go to Nashville.
It is in Tennessee.
I'm telling you. Have you ever been to Nashville?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's
a blast, man. What
so
a
good.
blast! What I'm telling you. Next year we're gonna have to go to an away game and do some video drops as a podcast because I think it'd be kind of cool. It'd be fun and Nashville's a blast. I mean, it really is. Where else can you go to a bar at 2:00 in the afternoon with some guy who could be the next Jason Aldean or Luke Bryan, strum a guitar for 5 people, 2 of them that are hammered, and then before you know it, he's got a record deal and he turns out to be Jelly Roll or somebody.
Right.
You never. I'm just saying, you never know. You can never underestimate. You know that being in the music, you just don't know.
It can pop off anytime.
At any time it could pop off. When I was watching one of the Country Music Award shows, which Peyton was on it. Peyton's a really funny guy. Whoever writes his jokes, he's funny. Just because he's got that dry sense of humor. But when I watch this show and Post Malone got up there with he did Pickup Man, one of Joe Diffie's songs, and all the country people were flipping out. I'm like, okay, first of all, pump the brakes, y'all. He's not doing because Taylor Swift got that museum named after her, whatever. She went country, she bounced to pop. Post started off as a country singer. If you YouTube his stuff, and then I'm not talking like fake country like Timberlake tried to do with Man of the Woods.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. Like he's legit wanted to do country. The people at the label thought they had a better idea, and obviously they did because now we've got the Post Malone that we have now. But don't get it twisted. Just like Jelly Roll was a rapper before he became a country artist. I'm really not that good of a rapper. Let's just be serious there. Okay, definitely a bit. He's not as good as good. I look at those independent guys like him and Tech Nine. Tech Nine's like on a whole different level. Anyway.
Yes, he is.
Tech Nine I don't know why Tech Nine doesn't have a deal. I don't know why nobody has not picked him up because he is solid.
There's got to be some personality issues there is what it all comes down to.
I mean, if he can make money as an independent and play like he's venues, like say the size of 8 Seconds, nice little 1,000-seat venues and make some money, God bless. But anyway, I digress. Back to my point. Everybody gets mad. Well, because he can just stay with pop because he's what? He's got tattoos on his face. So does Jelly Roll. I mean, what are you gonna do? Because the way he looks. Well, look at Jelly Roll. He wears his Nike, his Nike Jordans with the tongue sticking out and everything else. And you guys accept him.
Jelly Roll looks like a dude who eats at Long John Silver's every day.
He does. He looks like a guy that's going to come out there and tell you your transmission repair is going to cost 3 times than what was originally quoted. You know what I mean? He's going to come out there
washed in 3 weeks.
He's wiping off his face, got grease all over his head. Hey man, that transmission's going to cost you about $2,300. Cigarette dangling out of his mouth. But anyway, Posey's if he put out a country, put it this way, if he put out a country album, a legit country album, I really do think it would do well because if you Google any of his early stuff, and he'd done some stuff with Budweiser. Like some Budweiser sessions and that kind of stuff. He's legit. But again, the label, this is one of the times the label got it right, which they did. They did with Taylor Swift. They didn't with Pink because they didn't want Pink to be, so sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. I like how you use the cop button. I'm glad we didn't hear that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
We play Tennessee and Nashville. I'm sure the weather's going to be a lot better than it is in Indiana, Illinois, St. Louis metro area. What is your predict if you had to? Because we haven't spoke in a while. That's why this podcast may run over just a little bit because we haven't been doing. I don't know about 2 a week. We can't guarantee. We're gonna. We can't
get to one a week. Let's get to one a week for right now.
Let's get to one a week and get into a rhythm. It's life, guys. It's life. It's life, man. Miles is busy. When I saw the stuff that you back on stage, I'm not even gonna bug this dude. And then he texted me. He's like, "What do you think? I had COVID." It was back and forth. I'm like, oh man, I didn't like, and I'm sure you were probably maybe MFing me or something. Go, man,
no.
He knows I'm gonna come back around, and it's just leading up to that last week of racing. Everything's like trying to get settled. Now it's like Saturday night, dude. I'm home. I'm like
for sure
doing nothing. Friday night, same thing. So give me a prediction, if you could predict a score. Would you have thought they won today? Did you have them pick?
Yeah, I had them winning. I had them winning today. I mean, I did a home game against a mediocre team at best. I don't know. So here's a couple interesting facts for you. The Colts are on a 3-game winning streak right now. It's the first time in Gardner Minshew's career that he has started and won 3 games in a row. So they're rolling, and he made a couple mistakes, but like. even he said the bye week was huge for him. He did a lot of like self-coaching and self-scouting and things of that nature. And you could tell, again, he's not blowing the doors off of anything, but if he can limit mistakes, he's a good player. He's good. That's it. He's not great. He's good. Right. The defense looks great, minus some issues at corner that we knew existed, especially with all the injuries and who we have to start there. But I think this team is heating up, and they're heating up at the right time. Tennessee is not great. They're not even good. Will Levis is really, he gave him a little bit of a spark. But I think at the end of the day, they're
not the Tennessee team
they're
we played
a couple
before.
years away. They're a couple years away from being a team to be worried about. So I'm going to take the Colts. Interestingly enough, the only time all season they haven't scored 20 points was in Germany against New England.
Again, you're in Europe, dude. I mean, what? Yep. It's just, I just think, and I understand what the NFL is trying to do. Don't get me wrong. I think it's cool. But, man, that's just a lot to demand. It's a long flight. The atmospheric conditions are different. Everything's just different. I just don't think, somebody goes to sleep on a plane for 13 hours, whatever, wake up and he's in Germany. Right. You can't. I say it's completely atmospheric. I'm a big person of that. Same thing with, pressurized domes, back when we had the RCA dome and you had the airlocks and all. I just think it's just different. And I think that's the people are not. It's just different environments. You got some horses, like, for example, you got a horse that'll run really, really good on a sloppy track. Yep. You've got some that are speed horses. Like, I'm not going to run that sloppy track and risk something happening. No. And I just think it's just, I mean, seriously, you don't, because it's a big risk. And we have some, there's a lot of people, oh man, it's raining. But let me tell you something, the track is sealed. I'm there every day. I'm there like really early, a lot of times filming workouts. And I think, it's just, what are you going to do? What are you going to, I mean, in the grand scheme?
You don't have, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, here's where I'm at. I'm at 27-17 Colts.
Ooh, I like that number. Now 27-17. I'll make sure that when I put the description, we say that.
I'm going to throw one more little hot take prediction here.
Okay.
I am going to say that the Colts will intercept Will Levis and return it for a touchdown during the course of that game. So 7 of those points will come from a defensive pick six.
Wow. Look at you. Look at you kind of extending the branch of knowledge there.
Yeah, we're going to get a little, like I said, there's a lot on the line with Will Levis coming to town, and I think the defense knows it, and they're going to take every chance that they can.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Make sure that there's no question that their quarterback, who is currently hurt and will be back next year, is the guy. They all love him. They love Anthony Richardson. Everybody does. So they're going to play extra hard for him. So I see a defensive touchdown in this game because of that.
Right. And one last thing, and I won't get too deep because I know when I mentioned it, you're like, oh, because we don't want to get too deep.
No, we got to talk about it. I know what
I just don't understand. Here's what I think. And again, guys, so everybody knows, this has nothing to do with Wish TV. It has nothing to do with any of our employers and Dorsey's opinions, okay? These are just because I was working, not that I was like playing for the team, but working for the team. Here's the deal. I know everybody wants to talk about all the stuff that Jim has done. I mean, put it this way, he's done a lot more good than he has bad. Truth. And it's more sensationalized. It's no different than when what's his name? Guy that coached the Pacers and got pulled over with the money, and Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, Isaiah
okay,
Thomas.
The same thing. Now, a lot of time these guys want to have money in case A, they bump into somebody, maybe less fortunate or whatever. I know Edgerrin walks around. I know a lot of those guys walk around with money. So having money in his car, big deal. The guy's a billionaire. He could drive around whatever he's want with. And as far as medication goes, now here's what I think. First of all, as long as you've got the you got a script and everything, you're fine. Now, if you've got a big Ziploc baggie full, obviously there's an issue. If you've got them in a container and they're prescribed, there's nothing you can do about it, because let's say they weren't. Okay, let's say supposedly it was this big scandal thing. You think any of those doctors in Carmel or wherever, you think Jim's just like walking down the street going, handing a bit? No. And that's what I think is, I just think it's crazy. They always go after this guy. His generosity is through the roof. And it just makes for a better story. It's like, how long are we going to be talking about this? Same thing in Matthew Perry. Are we going to find out maybe what everybody's thinking is true? Like, why do we care? Let this guy, he's admitted he's had his faults. Let him rest. He's done his thing. Same thing of Pat McAfee jumping in the freaking canal. Same thing of Mike Tyson. All these guys, it's like, Why does ESPN? Why do they want to rehash it? Is that going to increase viewership? What's the deal?
Right.
What do you think? Why are they just picking on him?
Here's the whole thing. First of all, this story has been dead.
Yeah.
And like for Andrea Kramer to bring it back up, I mean, smart by her as a journalist, right?
Well, yeah.
But for Jim Irsay to participate in it, okay, stop. I get it. So he's on this kicking the stigma thing with mental health and addiction.
Absolutely.
It's part of what he's trying to do because he is a good human, as you know, as I have had in my interactions with him. Not a lot of people get to know that. He is a human above humans. Like, he's such a good man who's just made a bunch of mistakes because he was a spoiled rich kid.
Yeah.
Like 90% of other spoiled rich kids are. But like looking at the interview, that's the thing that's sad about this for me is, first of all, I don't know why he would have made those comments about being profiled as a rich white billionaire.
That was stupid.
That was dumb. And then to follow
when he said that, when he said that, Pete Ward is probably over there in 56th Green going,
oh, he was. He probably had a stroke. But then he said, I don't care about what anybody thinks. And
he hasn't. He proved that to Bill Polian and anybody else. You
and I both know better. Jim cares about what people thinks. He's a people pleaser.
Well,
he's a people person.
But he's also going to do what he wants to do.
But like, what sucks about that whole segment, about 30 to 45 seconds of this 15-minute segment is it took the attention off of what it was all about and why it was done in the first place, which was the kicking the stigma for mental health. I mean, you have to be proud of Jim Irsay, because I think in 2004, 2005, when that arrest happened, we all expected him to either relapse or end up dead in a ditch. And he's sober, and he's out there trying to do things to help other people get sober. And again, we know the kindness and the kind man that Jim Irsay is.
Absolutely.
But it took all of the attention off of the message that mattered and put it on this thing, because when you have somebody who is in the spotlight as Jim Irsay is, I mean, he's the longest tenured owner in the NFL.
Yeah.
He feels like he's
probably
the
most
of the owners,
and he is the voice of the owners because he's probably the most active owner on Twitter.
Without a doubt. But then you've had all the Jonathan Taylor stuff. You've had all the Shaq Leonard stuff.
True.
So the Colts, even though they're not like blowing the doors off the season, they've been in the spotlight a considerable amount.
Yeah, because people are going, wait a minute,
that have happened.
Yeah,
drafting Anthony Richardson, then him being out for the season. There's a lot of national stories around this team. So, Jim Irsay is in the public eye. And because of that, this message could have been resounding about kicking the stigma, these stereotypes to help people overcome mental illness and drug addictions and whatever addictions.
Right.
And then that message was lost because when you have that kind of national attention, and you say something stupid like that, that's not racially charged but could be perceived as racially charged, and you have the Stephen A's of the world who are going to die on that hill when there's nothing, let alone when you give them something.
Yeah, because all the money's going to McAfee.
Right. So, and of course, Stephen A, being the phenomenal sports journalist that he is a professional, stirrer. He's good at it. Just like Skip Bayless is, and I can't stand Skip Bayless. I actually like Stephen A. But he is a professional-ish stirrer, and you gave him a bucket full of ish to stir. What did you expect? And then he goes out on Twitter responding to Stephen A. and responding to random people that or X or whatever it is that mention him and everything. And it's like, dude, just lay down. The story was dead. And you had the opportunity to make this huge statement about kicking the stigma, and this is all that's been focused on.
And what they should have done is he should have took one of his daughters with them, as you know, because you take a handler with you. Okay, you sit down with the interviewer, because true story. I had to do an interview with Chad Kroger from Nickelback, right? And this was the height of the success, and they were gonna go play I still call it Bankers Conseco, whatever it was back then, and. The guy from the label said, don't clown him about being Canadian, because he hung up on somebody about that, because they're like making fun of him or whatever,
right.
They're all like, da, da, da. Well, they're like, and they're all clowning him. But then these are same guys that Bad Girlfriend, and that track was produced by Chad Kroeger. So, which people don't seem to realize. And they said, so I stayed away from that question. I could have probably gotten him to hang up on me. It probably would have been in the talk on the X. Hey man, Alex was kind of a D-bag with Chad from Nickelback, but I didn't, because I listened to I listened to the manager, and I think somebody should have told that Andrea chick, whoever, here's a list of stuff you've got to stay away from. It's done. Let's talk about how the team could be, squeaking into the playoffs. Yeah. Let's talk about this drive that Jim's doing with the mental health and everything, okay? Because big deal. You're not going to get anything done. He pled guilty. It's done. It's over with. I mean, I don't see where there's any gas left in the tank as far as that story goes.
There shouldn't have been, but we poured gas on the fire with it for sure.
That's media. That's what media does. They want to find that one little thing they can hitch on it to whatever. And it just, and we, not we, all of us, but a lot of us as a society, oh man, let me guess, they must have found maybe a pill in the crack of the seats. Something that they just want to take so minuscule and make this thing out of it, when the focus should be on football. Focus needs to be on mental health, and the focus needs to be on that guitar collection, because his guitar collection's insane.
Oh, it's so good.
And the roadshow stuff that he's doing, and the fact that he brought like Mellencamp, he brought like concerts, he's doing stuff, and he's stepping off that 3-piece suit platform that a lot of you don't see. Anything you hear something about owner, you see Jerry Kraft, all you do is something bad. They're doing more bad stuff than Jim is. Here's Jim, like in the streets, so to speak, say, hey man, check out this live music, check out this, check out that, and bring in some culture to some places that normally wouldn't get to see stuff like that. And then you're gonna bag on him about it in a restaurant like once upon a time.
But he also said what he said and didn't help himself out at all, man. If you're a media person, you have to latch on to that. I mean, look at us. Oh, yeah. We're supporters of Jim Irsay, and I can't get behind him saying that.
Yeah, I think
I'm like, dude, what were you effing thinking?
He wasn't thinking.
No,
that's the thing is
he's an emotional guy, man, and she touched a nerve, and
you got to have a handler. You got to, or you just cut it short. Guess what? You just rip that mic off and get up. You know what I mean? Like just
break time.
So many. It's break time. You said we're gonna cut to commercial. I mean, we've seen celebrities.
It wasn't even live.
Yeah, they could have taped it. They could have edited it out. And it's like, dude, like somebody. He needs a handler. He needs somebody, but he does what he does, and that's why he's good at what he does on a lot of things. But like you said, when you're that passionate of a person, you have a tendency of saying what you feel before you have time to process it. For the people that are going to be on the receiving end, I do the same thing all the time. Now, Pop, I don't care. And I think back and go, wait a minute, I probably could have did that differently. But you're going to get an honest answer out of me. I mean, it may be. F-bombs galore and foul language and everything. I don't do it just to say it. I do it because I'm expressed. When I'm passionate about something, man, boom.
Same way, man. I'm the same way.
You gotta be. You're saying 27-17 will be the score next week.
Yes, sir.
And what time is the game?
It's a 1:00 game. The rest of the games, we got 6 more left. They're all 1:00 starts.
Okay.
The rest
next
of the
week, we're not going to promise nothing during this week. I just can't see it happening. But I will say we'll be back on the same time next week. We'll get on right after the game. Miles will get it all chopped up and on there because, everybody and their mother's going to have, all the professionals, the collaborators of the world, all these like sports overtime shows. The professionals will do their thing, and then us two guys will do our thing probably before them if we get it done up there in time before the news or whatever. And we see what you think. 27-17. And if I was allowed to bet in the sports book, I would. I'd go down. I'd jump on my account, but I can't.
Yeah, you're forbidden. I'll do it for both of us. Do it
for both of us
in your name, but by no means colluding. All right, guys. So thanks for hanging out with us. It's good to be back. Crazy weekend with the Colts win. CM Punk and Randy Orton back in the WWE on the same night. Craziness. We'll see you guys next time. Go Colts! Go Colts! All Indiana Podcast Network. Me Brothers out.